My name is Stefan Wick.
I'm Dan Harteno.
And we're both program managers on the Windows team. We work on the App Foundation team. Our team is responsible for the app model in Windows. This includes app packaging, app deployment, app execution, and all the tooling that you guys need for that. So before we start, a quick question. How many of you have seen the MSIX session on Monday, the overview session that John and Nona did? Everyone? Most people? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. If you haven't seen it, definitely take a look at the online recording. John and Nona did a great job going into all the great benefits that you get from MSIX. So I won't be able to recap all of that today. So catch up on that session. Today in this session, we really want to focus on how you guys get there, how you guys get to MSIX, and we want to show a bunch of demos around that. Some of them will be pretty cutting edge, slightly risky, fresh bits taken right off a developer's machine, doing here on stage. So let's see how it goes. Fingers crossed, and wish us luck. So before we go into the future, just 1 minute stepping back real quick into the 90s. How many of you are old enough to recognize what is this? Anyone knows? Jeannie, you don't know this. Yeah, that's a good guess. Yeah, VB2, VB3, I'm not 100% sure. So so this is early 90s, an IDE produced by Microsoft back in the day. A lot has changed since then. Developers now write C# code, they use MVVM patterns, they do DevOps, they store their code in Git, and all these modern things they do today. However, if you look at the app and deployment model for Windows desktop applications today, not a whole lot has changed since then. Back in the day, how did people deploy their apps? They essentially do an X copy for all their files, do a couple of reg writes, and then do a create process to launch whatever executable they need to launch. And that was the app model. And in many ways, this is still how it works today. And this is a model that goes back to the days where you buy software on a disk in a box from a shelf. So kids today can't even imagine that. It was a time everyone was running as admin. The internet didn't really take off yet, and security and privacy wasn't much of a thing. Now, in today's world, if you install a classic installer, a lot of the same things are still happening. First of all, the installer will prompt you, are you okay if I modify or destroy your machine? And we click yes, and then things happen. Most of the time it works well, but not all of the time. Running those installers can have impact on other apps on the system or on the entire system health. How many of you have ever installed an application and later regretted it because even after uninstalling it, your system was never the same again? Many, well, no surprise. Also, you've all experienced that your machine gets slower over time. The more you've used it, the more you've installed and uninstalled applications. Those are phenomena that we call WinRAR or DLL hell on Windows today, and a lot of these problems are rooted in kind of the sort of ancient app model and app deployments that still kind of go back to these days. So over the years, a lot of technology has evolved, from Microsoft as well as from third-party partners to kind of help mitigate some of the problems, but none of these really kind of holistically address the root cause here, nor did it solve the problems for everyone, including ISVs and consumers and enterprises and so on and so forth. So what we're taking now, all the learnings from those 30 years, going back in Windows installer history, we're taking those learnings and we put all our energy into one format going forward. This is the MSIX format, packaging and deployment technology built into Windows 10, where we're using all the learnings and taking the best of MSI, AppV, Click Once, you name it, and putting this into one technology going forward. So all our new feature development goes into this. Our team also owns MSI and AppV. but all investments are going into MSIX going forward from here. Does this mean MSI and AppV are going to be deprecated in the next update of Windows? No, clearly not. Those will be around, for a number of years. Eventually, we hope to be able to deprecate it in some future. But someone actually just asked me that yesterday here at the conference. They asked, "Hey, I'm about to start a new project with a customer using AppV. Should I do this or should I wait for MSIX?" No, today, that is still a good decision. Go with AppV for that project if that's what you determined works for you now. And we will make sure from AppV you will have a smooth path over to MSIX when you're ready to do that. So our agenda today, really three things. We want to talk about how you as a developer can move to MSIX for your current and existing and new applications that you have under development. Second, we want to talk about how the IT pro in the enterprise can move to MSIX. So if you have an existing catalog of hundreds or thousands of applications today in the various packaging formats of the past, how can you move those forward into MSIX? And then third, Deanne will talk about how easy and powerful app customization is with MSIX packages. Okay, just looking at the benefits from an application developer perspective here for now. As a developer with MSIX, you no longer need to build an installer. You don't need to worry about the updater or how to uninstall your application. The system will take care of you. All you need to do is package your app in the right format. You will have additional distribution options for your application, such as the Microsoft Store, but you can also continue to use all of your existing channels as well. Monetization licensing is built right into the platform, and your package will be future-proof. You're betting on the technology that we're betting on for our applications as well, and where we're putting all our investments. With the MSIX format, you're also set up for deploying to the Windows 10 S mode, as well as new and future configurations and devices coming next. Last but not least, with the MSIX packaging format, your existing Windows desktop application now has access to all Windows 10 APIs and features. So whether you're looking at Windows Hello, Cortana, or you want to modernize with XAML, Fluent, Ink, those are all options. Once you've packaged your existing application with MSIX, and it doesn't matter if you are WinForms, WPF, MFC, or Electron today. You can get access to all those APIs. Also, other things that you may not see in keynotes all the time, like running code in connected standby, for example, or exposing app services for other applications to interact with your app. Those are all possible. And also just better integration with Windows 10 in general, things like Live Tiles or People Hub integration. Okay, in order to get there, tools are vital. We totally understand that. Developers need great tools where they are today. Clearly, we in Microsoft, we are committed to deliver great support for this in Visual Studio, but also we realize developers are not all building their apps in Visual Studio. They're using other tools as well, and they're not always using the Microsoft tool chain. So with that, I'm really happy to talk about all the collaboration that we've started with some of the leaders in the industry that are building installer technologies and developer tools for app developers. So we've started deep engagement with all these partners, and we'll continue to add more to the list as we go. So we're really excited to be on the journey to MSIX with all these great partners that are adding support to their tools for MSIX in the near future. So let's look at a demo here. Can we switch to 8?
Yeah.
And so I want to show how in Visual Studio today you can package an existing desktop application and bring it into the MSIX container very easily. And so I've chosen a kind of old style application, MFC application, probably like 15-year-old application, a good old multi-document application. You probably see many of those, or millions of those even, in enterprises today, still doing critical work in the day-to-day business. Now, so what does it take to move this app into, or this kind of app into the new format? In Visual Studio, I can add a new project type called Windows Application Packaging Project. Actually, let me give it a better name. And so with this project will not have any code, so I don't need to write any code to get my job done here. All I need to do here is really specify what applications I want to package. In my case, it's just one application. And now I can set this as my startup project. And I can further customize my package here a little bit in Visual Studio. I get a couple of options. I can declare capabilities for my application and so on. But I just want to add, actually it's already here, so that's convenient. Let me generate this for the right scale. So I just want to add some assets for my tiles and taskbar icons. So Visual Studio helps with that. And so it's generated all these files here in the different scale formats. And so that's about all the customization I want to do right now. And so now when I launch my application, it will first get packaged as an MSIX, deployed, and then run in the new context of the MSIX container. So let's see what happens. Oh, my demo crashed. Yeah, I knew it was risky, kind of cutting edge. No, that's actually by design. So I don't want to show you just kind of the golden path where everything just magically works. I also want to show you kind of some of the things that you may hit as you do this. So what happened here? So I'm hitting an exception here. Or the call to create file failed. I'm hitting invalid. I'm seeing the file handle is invalid because the create file call failed. And if I look at this, what happens here? I'm doing a write to my log file, which without really a qualified path. I'm just writing it to my install location. And so this is something that that in the MSIX container we prevent you from doing in order to keep the install location pristine, in order to be able to cleanly uninstall you, to seamlessly update your app, and to ensure the integrity of the app installed. So this now is a line of code that, as an app developer, I need to go change in order to be compatible with the rules in the MSIX container. So I'll just do a quick change here. I'll write my file to the app data location, which is probably a better place for this anyway. I'm restarting, set a breakpoint here just to make sure the right things are happening. And so here my breakpoint's hit. Now we see, okay, the file goes to app data. If I step over this, I'm fine. My application comes up. We see down here, so it's actually using my assets. So this is kind of an indicator that it runs in the package context. You get all the integration with the app list and the start menu for free. And I can directly uninstall it from here as well, because now it's in the modern app model. Windows knows about this app and knows how to install it, how to uninstall it, how to update it, and so on and so forth.
So you just had to change one line of code?
One line of code in this case, yeah. In many cases, it just works. You don't have to change anything, but a few lines of code is not unusual.
And this is, you have the source code, right, for this?
In this case, yeah, I'm the ISV or I'm the LOB developer for this application. I have the source code. It's easy to debug in Visual Studio, and I can make the changes right there. So now if I want to go distribute this app, I can create the packages right here. So I create app package. I can select store or non-store distribution. In my case, I'm an LOB. I just want to do non-store distribution. I can select different architectures here. In the interest of time, I will only build x86 here. And so now this produces the MSIX package for my MFC application, and should only take a second. And with that, I'm ready to distribute this. So package completed. Actually, let's take a look. Here it is. So here's my MSIX file, which contains my MFC application. I can go ahead. And so this is the default install experience that Windows provides for your MSIX packages. I can go ahead and install it, and it will launch from here. And so now with this package, you can distribute it in your enterprise, via Intune, via SCCM from your website, or you can put it into the store for business if that's your distribution of choice. And yeah, so that's it for the first demo. If you can switch me back there, please. Thanks. And so obviously not everyone is using Visual Studio to build their application. You may use other IDEs, or you may have already created your installer. So one of the things I forgot to kind of point out here, everything I've just shown in Visual Studio is actually available today. You don't need an insider or preview build for that. You can use the current Windows 10, the current Visual Studio, and you can get started with that. What you get using the same technique today is an Apex package. And so with that Apex package that you create today, we will guarantee you 100% in this fall when we introduce MSIX in the next update, it will automatically convert 100% to MSIX. So it's a great way to get started today if you're a developer. And also, if you're not in Visual Studio, you've already built an installer, or you just produce an EXE using some other tools. Great way to get started today as well. Either using the desktop app converter, which is a command line tool provided by Microsoft. I always kind of refer to it as sort of the notepad of the conversion tools. It's very simple. It does the job, but it doesn't have any of the bells and whistles. There are other options available. A great tool developed by our friends at Advanced Installer. They have a free Express edition. It's available for download for you guys. That gives you a little more, of a UX and more sort of comfort and bells and whistles around it. It's another great tool to get started. And so the Apex packages that you create with these, they will translate or convert automatically to MSIX in the fall with the next update of Windows 10. And you can get some of your apps converted today. You will not get like 100% conversion success with these tools today, but those that convert, will automatically become MSIX. And those that don't convert today with these tools will get you in the fall with MSIX and the new tooling. So now switching gears over to the enterprise. In the enterprise, there's a number of other benefits that I want to highlight for MSIX packaging and deployment. First of all, fast, reliable installs and updates. Who doesn't want that? Clean uninstall. So we really mean that. That's 100%. The Windows will also protect your app binaries and data. So very important for enterprise. You will get additional distribution options, in addition to what you do today. You can keep doing what you do today with MSIX, but you can also, go with Store for Business, Intune, and get all those great capabilities from those distribution mechanisms. We eliminate WinROT and DLL hell. We already talked about how important that is. And you will get substantial savings in your network bandwidth because we will deliver differential updates for your applications. If you have a 2 GB app package and you make a quick bug fix, the MSIX pipeline is smart enough to really only get you, those changes down over the network. We won't download the whole 2 GB package, and you don't have to do anything about it. The developer doesn't need to know about it. The admin doesn't need to know about it. It's all done automatically. Storage size savings, you get potentially substantial savings because we single instance files on the system. So if you have 100 apps that all use the same control library, we only ever put one instance of that on the system and keep referencing that for all the apps you install. More details on all these benefits actually are in John's talk, so definitely recommend again to watch that. There's a lot more detail there. And last but not least, the Windows 10s mode that I already mentioned, also for enterprise. I think very interesting benefit here. So from a tooling perspective, there's a number of different expectations and requirements that enterprises have, different from the developer point of view. In the enterprise, the IT pro needs to repackage existing installers to MSIX. They don't typically have the source code or can make changes to that source code. They expect a high conversion success rate and a high degree of compatibility of that conversion process. They're expecting a UX to operate the repackaging, but also a command line so they can automate and script the processes that they do repeatedly in their day-to-day business. They want to support Windows 7 and Windows 10 with the same binaries today. That is still a requirement for some amount of time for many of the enterprises. And last but not least, they need to configure the final packages for successful deployment in their enterprise. So again, tools are vital. We realize that. We've talked to a bunch of enterprises over the last 6 or 8 months. We talked to system integrators, to MVPs, and other folks who are very vocal in this space, and we're trying to learn what are all the requirements and what do you really expect from those tools for repackaging existing installers for MSIX. And so we've started building a new tool based on all these learnings that we will release for free later this year. We will update the tool on a quarterly basis. So every quarter, you will see new features coming in. You will see new bug fixes, of course, coming in. But also, we want to incorporate your feedback on a quarterly basis there. And also, here we are collaborating again with the same partners that I've already shown earlier on the slide for enterprise caliber tooling to really meet the enterprise customers where they are today with the tools and workflows that they're using today. So let's take a look at the next demo here. Thank you. So let's get rid of this. So I want to show you, actually, let me close this and start this over. So this is very, very early drop of our packaging tool, and I want to walk you through kind of a common workflow, maybe kind of the canonical, more Hello World workflow here. And think of it as a UX experience that is based on also a command line interface. So we will give you both the UX and command line tools to do all these activities. So you can do it interactively, but you can also build scripts and your own tools that automate these things and that do things in bulk. So I want to package an application, and so I want to pick an LOB application. And so what is LOB application in my line of business? I don't work at Contoso, actually. I work at Microsoft. I work in Windows, and one of the LOB apps that we have, sort of LOB apps, is Bugger. It's a little tool that we use for bug management and bug tracking. But bugs are really the currency in Windows. So if I want anyone to do anything in Windows, I file a bug on them. That's probably always the best way to get anything done with email or talking to the person. People don't really do that. So I file a bug, and then the Bugger tool actually takes care of delivering that bug to the person, and it actually sends displays a nice little present with a notification to the person, so they know they have a bug. Yeah, believe it or not, we still have a few bugs in Windows. So let me now take this MSI, and so what I want to do is I want to create an MSIX package for this MSI. Since it's an MSI, I don't really know what it does. It may have any number of custom actions or whatever. So my only way to really reliably package it is to perform the installation and capture all the modifications it does to the system in terms of registry, file system, and so on. And so to do this, I'm selecting a VM here. In my case, it's a local VM. It could be a VM in the cloud as well. I can also do it locally, but using a VM is always recommended because then you know the environment is clean and there's no other interference that could have an impact here. So if my input is not an MSI, if it's, for example, an AppV package, I can do potentially a better job and just simply transform it because I understand what is an AppV package. It's very similar to an MSIX package, and I can more directly translate it. So you can throw any input into this tool, and we will do the right thing based on that input and produce an MSIX for you. Okay, so let me kick this off. So now it spins off a couple of things. We may be able to get rid of some of these pop-ups here eventually. And so what should be happening here is it spins up this VM and logs me in, hopefully. And now in this VM, so this may still take a minute or so. So I will just keep talking kind of what's happening here. In this VM, we will start, actually there it is. So we'll start the installer. So this is my bugger update. It's an older app, as you can see. It's been around for many years. We have recently, or some time ago, packaged this as an AppX, so we can distribute it in our own internal store for business at Microsoft. And now we've repackaged it as MSIX, and that's what I want to show you here. So here I just go interactively through the installer and choose my options. I could also do a silent install, of course, but here I want to show you kind of how it's done interactively. So now we've performed the installation in the VM. I've captured all the modifications, and so now I can actually close this. And in my next step, I had to choose where I want to save my MSIX package, and I'll just save it to my documents folder. And so now here, back on my actual machine.
Oh, you need to go next, right?
Oh, yeah. On my actual machine. So here's the bugger.msix package created by the tool. Now I can go ahead, double-click, install, and seconds later it launches. So here's my application now packaged as MSIX. Can now distribute it in my enterprise. Everyone is happy. Everyone can send bugs and receive bugs. I'm not going to log in. I don't want you to see all my bugs, so I'll just cancel this out here, and we'll move back to the slides. Thank you. So, well, now we're ready for distribution. And so let's take a step back and talk about distribution a little bit. If you've looked at UWP or Desktop Bridge in the past, about distributing those applications, mostly we've talked about it in the context of our Microsoft Store for consumers. So in the Microsoft Store for consumers, we have a pretty high bar for applications. We really want to make sure no user ever regrets installing an app from there. And we have a number of rules and policies that we apply in the consumer store for applications, such as your application needs to use the .NET runtime that comes in the box with Windows 10. It cannot just force a user to go back and install .NET 2.0 or something. The application from the consumer store may not auto-elevate the application or require admin rights to run. Because the user doesn't require admin rights to install, so they should be able to use the app as well. Also, apps from the consumer store cannot package a Windows service that then potentially can take over the machine or cause damage to the system. So really in the consumer store scenario, it's our rules and policies that apply there. Now when we talk about enterprise app distribution, it's a different mindset that we actually want to apply here. So we really want to look at it, those are your apps, your machines, and your rules. So as an enterprise app, you have by default access to all restricted platform capabilities. You can test your app against earlier versions of .NET, and if you find, hey, my app works great with 3.5, and that's exactly what it needs, you can package as MSIX and use that version of .NET. You're responsible for deploying that version of .NET in your enterprise, but if that's what you do today and you want to keep doing that, you can do that with MSIX. If your LOB app requires auto elevation, we will not stop you from doing that. You can continue to do that with MSIX in the enterprise scenario. So there are rules that we still apply, and those are the critical rules that are required in order to really guarantee all our deployment promises. Things like clean uninstall, no WinRot, no DLL hell, those are the rules that we will continue to apply to every app in MSIX. So what if I have a bug in my application in the context of one of these rules? Like we've seen earlier in the MFC application, that app obviously had a bug. It wrote to the install directory, and that's one of the things that we will block in order to ensure clean updates and clean uninstall. So the answer for that is right here, and I want to introduce the package support framework. It's a framework that comes with the MSIX tooling and the MSIX platform later this year. And with the package support framework, we will allow you to modernize your packages without having to change the code. It will help your app to follow those best practices in the modern environment, in the MSIX container. So does that sound like black magic? Too good to be true? Well, let's take a look how it works. So, let me first walk through conceptually here, and then I'll show actual demo running on my machine. So conceptually, here we have in our package, we have our application, could be our MFC app that has, this write to the install directory behavior. And so now I'm adding the package support framework to my MSIX package to address this problem. So peeking into this framework, it consists of a number of components here. The first thing we do is we change the entry point for your application. So instead of app.exe, we'll launch our own launcher.exe that comes as part of the framework. And now this launcher.exe reads the configuration file, which specifies what kind of fix and what level of fix needs to be applied here. And we'll look at that file in just a minute. And based on this configuration file, we can now inject a specific fix-up in the shape of a DLL into the application process, as well as our runtime manager DLL. This runtime manager DLL you can think of as essentially a convenient wrapper around Microsoft Detours. Microsoft Detours is an open source framework that helps with API redirection and API hooking. And so with this DLL, we're really making it easy to leverage that open source framework to accomplish our goals here. And so now these other pieces go away, and your app launches normally. And when the fix-up is needed, it gets applied automatically, and your app will run happily in the modern context. So I'll switch over to my machine and show you how that looks in practice. Can you?
Yep.
So what I want to do is, here I have my original app. So it started, can you see this? It's pretty small. It's just in EXE that I double click. This is my original MFC app. In the old days, I've just double clicked it and it works because I was able to write to my install directory. And so that worked in the past. Now, if I go ahead and package this, without any fix-up, just basically put the exe in an MSIX package and launch it, I get this error. So this is what we've seen earlier, in the debugger. That's where I got stuck because I'm trying to write to a location where I don't have write access to. And so now I have here the package with fix-up applied. Install this real quick. And so now it comes up, now it works. I did not change the code here. It's the exact same exe as before. So how did I do it? So let's take a look at the actual package content. And so on the left side, we have the original MSIX package without fix-up applied. It's a very simple package. Here's my exe. I have an application manifest. I can take a look at here. Here's my entry point. So this just launches my exe. That's about it. Here are my assets, and that's it. Now on the right side, I have applied the package support framework. And so the first thing that we're changing here is actually, this is the wrong one. Well, I don't know. Well, it should point at the launcher.exe, which is this one. And so now the launcher.exe is the first thing that comes up before the application starts. And what it does is it reads the config.json file. And so let me load this up here in my editor. And in this configuration file, basically, we just need to tell it, hey, what is the actual application that we need to run? So it's this guy. We're also specifying the working directory, which is kind of optional, but always a good, or often a good thing to do. And then we specify, what are the processes that we want to fix up. Because an application may consist of multiple processes, and we don't want to apply fix-ups to any processes that don't need that. So in our case, it's the same application process. We specify what is the DLL that contains the fix-up, and that's pretty much it. So with that, now the launcher is able to inject this code, and then at runtime, the right things will happen. So how does such a fix-up look like in code? Let's take a look at this exact fix-up here. And again, reminder, we're fixing the fact that writing to the install directory got an access denied. So let's start at the bottom here. So I'm declaring a shim for create file, or more specifically for the function that really determines whether or not I have access to the location. And so we see here, this is the shim that I declare. So this will now be called instead at runtime dynamically. And so all we do here is we call into the regular OS function to first check, hey, can we write to this location? And if we can, then nothing else happens. We'll just continue as normal, and there's no other impact to the application. However, if there is a failure, then we'll execute this chunk of code. And here, basically, what we're doing is we're getting the path to the application data, and we're redirecting our write there, and then we call create file with that path instead. And that's really it. So actually, let's take a look at that application.
So anyone can do any of these fix-ups, not the developer, right?
So that's a great question. Actually, I'll answer that in a second. Just taking a look here real quick at my app data. So here's a package that I've installed just these few minutes ago, and yeah. So this is actually where my log file now got redirected to dynamically at runtime. Yeah, excellent question. So for those of you who are not native C++ speaker, I hope I didn't scare you off with looking at this code here, but I really wanted to show you guys how it works at the code level. These oh, can you switch me back?
Yeah.
These fix-ups. For the most common things like writing to the install directory or other common things that we are seeing in practice, those will come pre-packaged from Microsoft with the framework, with the tool. So they will be part of the repackaging workflow and the repackaging UX. So the person operating this, they can just check these fixes and include the framework in the package that they are producing. So they don't need to be able to read or write the C++ code. But at the same time, the framework is extensible, flexible, and powerful enough that you can go in and write your own fix-ups. If you have a very odd case in your enterprise where you need something very specific for your application, you can do it using the patterns and the framework that we're providing here, and you can produce your own fix-ups to get unblocked. And so we're really trying to build kind of a community and an ecosystem around this. This package support framework will ship as open source on GitHub within the next couple of weeks, like let's say this summer. And so you guys will be able to get it from there, see how it's done, see all the code. We will frequently update it with more common fix-ups that we see are required, and we'll also encourage and would take external contributions to that as well, so that we can really build a community effort here. So kind of to summarize kind of what we've seen here as a workflow for packaging, you start on the left side with whatever you have today. This could be an MSI, it could be an AppV package, it could just be a loose file Xcopy installer or a plain exe, whatever you have. You can throw it into the tools, either into our tools or the great tools provided by some of our partners, to package them as MSIX, to run them in the MSIX container. And then if needed, you can add the package support framework, if you have legacy apps that require any fix-ups there. At that point, your app would be ready to publish or for distribution. But also, we realize for enterprises, that's not really the end of the story for your package. We realize in the enterprise, you often need to do additional customization just after the repackaging, so that you can successfully deploy it, to all your users in the enterprise. And so with that, I'm handing over to Deanne, and she will tell us all about customization.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. All right. So we know that for enterprises, the ability for you to customize your apps is really important. So with that, what we're doing with MSIX is that we're introducing what we call modification packages. Now, modification packages is like any other MSIX. And for this, modification packages is only available for enterprise scenarios. So let's walk through an example together. So I'm going to take my favorite app, my HR app, and I'm deploying it to my MSIX container. Now, what I've done what I'm going to do is I'm going to package my customization inside a modification package and deploy it to the same MSIX container. Now, what this allows me to do is when I deploy these two packages and at runtime, my HR app will be able to see my modifications that I've done. And if there's an update to my HR app, I will get the update without having to repackage my modification package, and vice versa. What's even cooler is if I have multiple modification packages, I could deploy this all in the same MSIX container, and my main app will see all of my modification packages. So let's walk through this with a demo. Oh, it's OK. I can do it. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Stefan. All right. So I am an IT pro from Contoso, and my company purchased this HR app from a third-party ISV. Now, I am tasked to customize this HR app to suit my company's aesthetic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the title as well as the background such that it will show Contoso's space brand. OK. So I'm just going to flash again the MSIX packaging tool that Stefan demoed. And as you could see, modification package is an option here for me to create a modification package. So what I've gone ahead before this demo is I've gone ahead and gone through the flow, and I've created my modification package. And what I've done here is I want to show you guys what's actually inside the package. And as you can see, it's like any other MSIX package where I'll have a manifest and I'll have these various files that allow me to customize my app. And so let's take a look at one of these files. And one of the most common things that we've seen with IT pros is a way for them to customize their app is they would go ahead and edit their registries to various what's that word? Just values, such that their customization would appear inside their main app. So I'm going to go ahead and take and load one of these files. So I'm going to go ahead and load a Hive. And I'm going to go to my HR, customization. I'm going to load user.dat. OK, HR, customization.
So those are all private hives, right? They're not in the global registry?
Yes, yes. So again, since we're in an MSIX container, clearly we don't want you to go and inject into the actual registry. What we've done here is we've essentially virtualized it such that when you're in the MSIX container, whatever keys that the modification package holds, the main app can see it.
Cool.
So gone ahead. OK. So as you can see, what I've done in my modification package is I've set the settings, the background, to a value, and the title to my Contoso space portal. So hopefully this will show up in my main app. So let's go ahead and install my modification package. OK. And let's reopen my HR app. So as you can see, the modification package overlaid with the main package. And I have my title here that's shown, as well as the background is pointed to my customized background. So that's great. So those are pretty simple modification packages, just editing the registry keys. But another type of modification package that we also support are plugins and add-ons. And those are pretty typical for enterprises to have. So let's go ahead and see what will happen when I deploy another modification package inside the same MSIX container. So I have here, and I'm going to install it. So hopefully you'll see both modification packages. Yes, that's great. All right, so So I've got a plugin here that will appear in the corner, and this will also load code. So in this case, it will load a video. And as you can see, my previous modification packages still appear without having me to repackage or do anything with that.
Oh, so is that how I could deploy Excel plugins for Excel?
You know, potentially. You know, yeah. So this is definitely something that we encourage moving forward is for plugins and add-ons for our Office products. You would typically package them in a modification package. Okay. So go ahead and close that. So talked about modification packages and what they will look like in our main package. But let's say we have an update from the main for the main app. In this case, for the HR app. So as an IT pro, I want my users to have the latest and greatest from the ISVs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install the latest updates so that I get the latest features from them directly. Now, if you notice, I'm not touching any of my modification package. Oh, it actually just popped up right away. Great. Anyways, so I didn't have to touch my modification packages at all. And you can see that all of the new features from the ISV gets injected without having me touch any of the modification packages. So it's great. All right, and then let's go back to the slides. Thanks. Yay! Sorry. I'm really excited that all the demos work. So anyway, so just wanting to plug back into the tooling. We are allowing we're providing first-class tooling support for modification packages. So for those of you guys who create plugins, add-ons, and also customizations such as preferences and configurations, you could do that all in the tool. And one of the most powerful things that with modification package is it allows you to decouple the update cycle. So as an enterprise, you keep the code flowing. You can get the latest and greatest of the app from the ISVs directly without having to repackage every single time. In addition, modification packages allow you to preserve and maintain your control of your customization such that it meets your enterprise needs. Modification packages can have code and content that live next to the publisher's package. And with that, we as Microsoft are also using this pattern with our own first-party apps. So if you could imagine with Office, you as the enterprise can get the latest and greatest from Office, and for your customizations such as plugins and add-ons, as the IT pro, you can go ahead and package and update that with your own schedule. So there's no need to wait for an Office update to do so. And with that, Stefan?
Yeah, thanks, Diane. Yeah, great demos. Awesome. Yeah, so with that, it's almost time to close this down. So I want to really emphasize here that MSIX is the deployment technology moving forward. That's where all our investment goes. That's where we think all of you get the best benefits going forward. You know, whether you're an ISV, you're LOB developer, or you're an enterprise IT. We've talked about app modernization, package modernization, and package customizations. The great thing about all this is, even though it's coming in the fall update this year, the whole MSIX story in the operating system, you can get started now. You can get started today. As we talked about earlier, if you're a developer, you can start producing Apex packages today, for your desktop applications, and those will translate 100% to MSIX packages in fall, so you can get all your testing work done early. Also want to point out a couple of pointers here, again, to the desktop bridge for existing tooling, just general enterprise dev links as well. And last but not least, connect with us using our new tech community for MSIX. This is brand new. We just created it this week. I hope you guys sign up there, and we can there connect with you, talk with you, get your feedback, get your input, and go on this journey with you together. A couple of related content. The breakout sessions there are already in the past, but you can catch the online recordings. What's in the future are the 2 sneak peeks this afternoon. So 4 o'clock and 4:30, you can meet us down there. We'll do a little more sneak peeking on all these things. And then also come to our MSIX booth in the client and web area. The entire team is there, and we're happy to meet you guys and chat more. And yeah, with that, please complete your evaluation form. We really want to hear your input. Thank you very much.
Want to go next?
Yeah, we have plenty of time for questions as well, so we'll hang around.
Oh, the mic?
Oh, yeah, we have the mics here as well. So yeah, you can just walk up to the mic and ask from there.
Hi. Are there any plans for sort of modularization in the inverse direction? So right now you're talking about add-ins and plugins, but if you were something like SQL Server, you wouldn't really consider people using you to be a plugin to you? So that model doesn't really work.
Yeah. So are you asking about like componentization of your app, like separating it in separate packages?
Separate vendors, right? So again, to that SQL Server example, if I'm going to need it in my install, after my install, can I declare that somehow and then say it has to be there, it has to get installed, it's got these configuration parameters?
So we have a concept, it's called optional packages, where you can basically componentize your app in the way you need it. It's actually a concept that's also used by Office. Office is a fairly complex suite of applications and components that are all kind of packaged as different optional packages. So users, don't always get everything in one block if they don't need that.
But does the optional package have to be my package, or can I just take it as a dependency from anyone who arbitrarily produces a package?
So today, optional packages are from the same publisher. But maybe your scenario is a little bit different. Maybe we can talk about that offline in more detail if you want to hang around.
Sure.
The customization package, where does it end up showing up to the user? Is it a separate app? If I go to settings apps, am I going to see it as a separate app? Am I going to see it as an add-on? How am I going to visualize that? And can I see the version of the individual customization components?
That's a great question. So when you run the app, it looks like one main app. In terms of whether you're allowed to, like, let's say, turn it off or not, I believe the plan of record is that because this is an enterprise experience, it'd be the IT pros to go ahead and remove it or update it.
Could I even see that it was installed though?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hi, yes. Our team, we provide an install experience for a system of products at our company. And the MSIs that we take in, we might get 50 or 100 of them. And all they do is put the bits down on the system. And we look inside the MSIs, we look at features, we look at versions, and then we have XML that tells us what kinds of things we need to do as we encounter these things inside MSIs. So I'm wondering, are we still going to have access to the internals of the package so we can see this kind of information, or do we need to rethink how we're providing this solution?
Yeah. So MSIX, we didn't mention it today, but we talked about in the Monday session. There is an open source SDK, for you to be able to really, extract and understand, what an MSIX is, and so you can unpackage it yourself, look into it, and all that.
Yeah, actually, in my demo, I didn't do it, but the way I was able to see my files is that I didn't unpack. So yeah.
Hi, my question is, we have an enterprise application.
Can you speak a little louder? Sorry.
Yeah, in our enterprise application, we have quite few Windows services. And as you mentioned, we may not be able to package it with MSIX right now.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, I think I didn't completely finish that sentence there, now that I think about it. So that is correct. Today, if you build a .apex package, or in the fall when the first version of MSIX will become available, we will not have the support for Windows services there. It's something we're actively working on right now that we hope to have in the spring update next year. For enterprise scenarios to be able to package Windows services in their MSIX.
Okay. So there are some configurations, application configurations, that is a legacy code which we may not be able to port immediately. So if there is an option for moving forward, at least as you said, the support for the Windows services, we can actually wait for that, instead of converting it to app service or background task.
Yep.
Thanks.
Just to expand on this gentleman's question here. So if you're installing a modification package, does it show up as a separate program in add remove programs?
No.
It's, so it doesn't show up to the end user as at all?
Well, it depends, right? Because, for example, we have seen plugins to be its own app. So there are various types of plugins that I think, for example, Grammarly is one that is what we consider a headless app and can only be seen in the in Word, I believe. But then there are those such as like a lot of the PDF apps that are its own like first-class apps that will be seen. So it really depends on the type of plugins that.
Let me ask you this: what would you like us to do?
Yeah.
Since it's only one app, I would like to see only one main app, whatever it is, so the end user can see that. Because even though if the user tries to uninstall, right, from add remove programs, if one stays there and one gets removed, then that will be a discrepancy between that may not be even useful for him, right? If the modification package only exists and the main package the user tries to remove, then there is no use for it. And there is a disk space, you're losing the disk space there. So.
Right, yep.
How about that kind of applications, or more like system level services like that include Windows services, may include something like virtual file system drivers, and which are basically intended to be visible to other applications and not like live in their own container and isolated.
Yeah.
So
so we didn't talk about drivers in this session, but yeah, installing drivers is not something that we are supporting with the MSIX package. So drivers, we want to actually move to a model where drivers get installed through Windows Update and not with the application package.
You could definitely have a relationship between an app and a driver. That's something that we're open to. But yes, again, we don't want that coupling of if you install an app, you install a driver. So.
How about if we forget about the driver and just talk about like system services that kind of need to be there for other applications?
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about Windows services in the context of the other question just before that one. So Windows services is something we are actively working on right now, targeting hopefully the spring update next year for MSIX package to contain a Windows service.
And when that's going to be available, then it's still going to be, visible system-wide and not somehow containerized so that it's isolated from the others.
Yeah, so the exact details I think are still a little bit TBD, but I'd love to chat about your scenarios for the services that you are using today. So we'd like to get to a capability-driven model where we can give you the capabilities that you need for your scenarios, but we're not by default opening it up for anyone who builds an app that has the full set of capabilities to do whatever. on the system.
Yeah, certainly. And the main reason for asking this is you kind of said that MSI is eventually going away, so eventually we need to be able to do things.
I mean, we do want to understand this scenario and provide solutions for the scenario. The solution may not be the exact same solution that you're doing today in MSI. So yeah, if you have time after this, I'd love to chat more about this scenario.
All right, so I wanted to ask about MSMs, like merge modules, right? So the way we use it is like we have multiple MSMs and then MSI is created based on it, so we don't have to install the same thing over and over again. And also like we have 3 MSIs which are using the exact same MSM and it'll be installed one. So what would be the next for it in MSIX?
Yeah, so I don't know if this concept really applies to
But I don't want dual registry installation. Let me make sure I understand this. So there is one DLL, let's simplify it down, right? So it's complex than this, but I'll simplify it down. So there is one DLL that 3 EXEs are dependent on. And so you're saying that, so I'm going to create 3 MSIX, and you're telling me like put the DLL in all the 3 MSIX, and how is it ref counting? How is it knowing, how each of it is knowing that this DLL is already installed and the next 2? Okay.
So the great thing is it's kind of like free lunch. You don't really have to do it. We do that work for you.
I see.
And then your second application goes to V2 of that deal. I don't have to always do it. Keep everything in the same.
Okay, great. That's good to know. And
we want to make your life simple.
great. All right,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Just to summarize, since you didn't have the microphone, yeah. So the single instancing of files that the pipeline does, for you, really eliminates the need for doing that. So we'll make your life easier. You just package, whatever the app needs, and then you don't need to worry about creating those MSMs anymore.
Excellent. So the second question is regarding COM registrations. So in the same example of the DLL, like if I want to do a regSVR, I can do it today with MSI.
Yeah,
can I do it with MSI?
COM registration, works the exact same way. Today, we'll register your by default your COM object in the local registry for your app. If you want to expose COM objects to other apps, you can do that as well. There is a declarative way to do this explicitly.
So when I do that declarative way, then it goes to the global registry as against
well,
my sandbox.
let's say it's visible to other apps as well. Where the actual writes happen, with the magic that happens underneath, that's how the sausage is made. But for other apps, it's like it looks like everything's there the same way as before.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, any more questions? Yeah, can you? Uh-huh. What, say again? Okay, I forgot to check something. Okay. Right, yeah, we capture whatever gets selected during the sequencing. Yeah. So yeah, those are things that that you would move to kind of a first launch experience, right? Or later, or an in-app experience, to change features later on. That's correct. Install on demand.
Option. Yeah.
Oh, so optional packages, yeah. So yeah, you can declare optional packages that can.
So you could do that separately.
Could. Okay, we have a few more folks there on the mic. If you have more questions, please go to the mic.
So the MSIX would be able to access the WMI interfaces as just as Win32 apps. Is that correct?
WMI, yeah, that is something on the roadmap for MSIX as well.
So not there yet. So
well, so are you asking about exposing WMI or
Yes.
calling WMI?
calling a WMI interface.
Yeah, calling WMI, that'll just work the same way as
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Hi. You've got a deployment package, but what about distribution mechanism? If we're an ISV and we've got a lot of application deployed amongst our customers, how do we let them take advantage of this package? How would we signal updates? How can they pull new versions? How do we get the deltaing working? What's the server component that does that?
So are you asking about the differential updates?
Yeah, some sort of store type capability.
Yeah, so no, it's not a store cable. It's built into the platform. Are you asking about the implementation details, or
No,
like?
Where is that component? If I'm an ISV and I want to host on the cloud all the different versions of my
Yeah.
software, and I've got lots of people out there, how do they know there's an update available? And if they do, how do we know which delta to
Right.
push?
So
them
yeah, if you're hosting the MSIX, on your web server, you can get that feature. So it's not specific to store deployment or Intune deployment. And so we actually, in the Monday session, we had a pretty detailed demo on that. So if
Okay, I'll
you
look
want
that
to catch that online recording.
And the magic just happens.
Yep, you don't have to
The
do
platform does
anything
it for
really.
you. Yeah.
Wonder how your sausage is made. Thank you.
In an enterprise scenario, I create my customization package, and I need some kind of way to create these registry keys that you showed in a kind of dynamic fashion. So previously, I would use a custom action and run a script. Now with the customization package, this is pretty flat, right? So is there some scripting support planned, or that I can query stuff and then write things depending on user, location, whatever?
So a couple ways, like for obviously our tool will capture all those changes for you, but something else that you could do is you could actually go in and use the registry edits and edit it directly there. Whatever you guys do to date in order to edit the registry keys would work too.
I mean, it's not, when I install or deploy the package, then I need to look up certain things on the machine or the user or whatever IP address range, and the customization package should behave in one or another way. It's not just create this static registry create when I have something more dynamic.
Yeah, so our tool will listen to all those changes and will output a modification package that will listen to all those changes.
Right,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right, guys. Any more questions? We got 30 seconds.
We'll also be here, so.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Hope to see you at our booth later today.